Welcome back. Now, my next guest shot to fame with her calm and principled plea to President Trump from her pulpit at Washington's mighty National Cathedral. Marianne Budde, the 65-year-old Episcopal Bishop of Washington, delivered the inaugural Mass last January and implored the new president to show mercy and compassion for marginalized groups living in fear of his campaign threats. While the president demanded an apology, many lauded her for her courage. And indeed, over the past 10 months since, those groups have felt the full brunt of this administration's policies. Now a book she wrote during Trump 1.0 is being adapted for younger readers. It's called We Can Be Brave, where she explores the nature of courage and concludes that it is much more than just a single act. And Bishop Budde joined me here this week to explain her journey. Bishop Marianne Budde, welcome to our program.
Thank you very much.
I want to start by asking you the obvious. You brought out a book several years ago, and you've brought it out again for children, if I could say, the children's version, We Can Be Brave. Tell me why you've adapted it for younger readers.
I was thrilled to have the opportunity to adapt themes of courage for younger readers. First of all, because many of the most consequential decisions we make in life have their roots in things that happened to us when we were young and the choices that we made when we were young. So I wanted to underscore that for young readers, that they already have important lessons of courage in their lifetime. I wanted to give them as many insights and lessons that I could from my own life, and more importantly, from characters and biblical and historical figures that they have known, to remind them, to remind us all, that courage isn't something that only brave people have, but that it's a lifelong journey of lessons and practice and efforts that we make, large and small.
I mean, can you be taught braveness?
Oh, absolutely. I think we all are. I think from the moments, from our earliest steps in childhood, we are always crossing thresholds of things we've never done before. And every time we do, we're learning something about what courage requires. And I think we are created to do that very thing, to cross those thresholds. And so, absolutely, it is something that we learn throughout our lives.
So I want to ask you this, because most people know a very visible demonstration of your courage. You may not call it courage, but some people thought it was the definition of courage. When you spoke truth to power, and you spoke your truth in the form of a supplication, really, to President Donald Trump just after his first inaugural.
I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President, on those in our communities whose children fear that their parents will be taken away, and that you help those who are fleeing war zones and persecution in their own lands to find compassion and welcome here.
When you said it, what was the reaction, and how did your congregation react to you?
I think it was well known immediately afterwards that the president and his supporters were not at all pleased and thought that I had been at best inappropriate, and worst, deeply outrageous in my remarks. On the other side, there was an enormous outpouring of support and gratitude from around the country and around the world. And so it's an interesting phenomenon to be a part of something like that, but I would say that it was an opportunity for me to lift up some very basic biblical and spiritual values into that space, and to honor the very people who were being and are being so dehumanized now. And when you ask about the congregation I serve, I would say that many of the people that I serve support the positions that I've taken because they are not mine. They are part of our broad spiritual tradition. Others disagree. We are not a monolithic church. But they respect my convictions, and I respect those who differ with me.
So you're never under threat of being canceled?
Not at the moment. We live in interesting times.
In a sermon this spring, In Germany, you said, one of the greatest challenges in the United States today is a culture of contempt that has normalized hateful speech and encourages violence. You've also said that we are deeply divided. The intensity of this polarization and this culture of contempt sustains, a threat to destroy us. It's actively promoted by those within and outside the United States who benefit financially and politically from our division. Tell me a bit more about the culture of contempt that you identify.
I think what's important for us as Americans to realize is that we have all been influenced by this culture, and the language of contempt has become increasingly normalized in our daily speech. And so how we can, every one of us, pay attention to the ways that we speak to and about one another, and perhaps to have greater curiosity and a willingness to engage with those who see the world differently, and not to allow those who put us in caricatures of difference to hold the final word. Now, I do want to make the distinction between the ways that many of us relate to each other in our neighborhoods and in our communities, but the public arena and increasingly some of our private spaces are marked by greater and greater hostility.
I guess then you must have been encouraged and actually sort of empowered when you saw two of the major world faith leaders meet together in the Vatican in the Sistine Chapel just recently, right?
Yes.
The American Pope Leo, Roman Catholic, and the British King Charles III, head of the Church of England. Two different strains of Christianity. What did you take from it?
Well, first of all, it's a very personal connection on both sides of that. As an American, huge admirer of Pope Leo and so grateful for his witness on the global stage. And King Charles and the Church of England, that is the tradition to which I belong in the wider Anglican Communion. And so to see the two of them together and to know something of the backstory of how long the Anglican Communion and the Roman Catholic Church have been in dialogue to work to find highest possible ground between us where we can be united in our witness to Christ and his message of love in the world, while acknowledging on so many levels, in fact, my very ordination stands right in the middle of the differences between our traditions, and yet that didn't keep the two of them from not only speaking but praying together. And I might add that Anglicans and Roman Catholics pray together all the time in other contexts, right? And I happen to be married to a Roman Catholic, so it's not that we aren't praying together, but to see the highest of leaders do so in a public way to demonstrate that common purpose was inspiring. It brought tears to many eyes.
Well, Bishop Marion Budde, thank you very much. I'm going to add one word. We can all be brave. Thank you so much.
Indeed. Thank you.